Welcome to XTERNA Insights, the series where we dive into the stories, challenges, and lessons shaping the world of facade and building enclosure consulting. I'm your host, Ethan Randall, and for our very first episode, I'm joined by someone who represents what this industry's evolution really looks like. Robert Hartley, Director of Architecture at Ancora Engineering and Architecture. Rob's career is a brilliant example of timing, growth, and determination. He's a dual licensed professional engineer, registered architect, and most recently earned his QE certification, all by the 7-year mark in his career. I actually first met Rob a couple of years ago for a perfectly timed cold call, and it just happened to be around the 6-year mark of his first major job in the industry. Since then, I've had the privilege of seeing his career take off, and it's been great to actually have him here for this conversation.
Thanks, Ethan. Really happy to be here today.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for coming. So we've got a lot to get into, from obviously your dual licensure to obviously you stepping into leadership, recently getting your QE, and what really kind of keeps people growing in this field. So I want to start with your path and how you actually came to be where you are today. You've moved relatively fast. You've accelerated your career, and I'd love to understand, and for the people listening to understand how you actually got into facade and building enclosure consulting, and what drew you into this part of the industry.
Absolutely, great question to start off with. So I have a degree from civil engineering from Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. Growing up, I always loved playing with Legos, Connects, all that type of stuff. Then thought it'd be an interesting career. So that's where I started really learning about construction materials, how different things interact with each other. So as I was graduating college and looking for my first job, I went to the career fair that Stevens had and met the company, my first company I worked with, Silcotech. It was called Vidaris at the time. And, they asked me if I was afraid of heights. I said, no, I wanted to work on skyscrapers. And lo and behold, I signed myself up to be a facade inspector. And it was a lot of fun. I really worked on some cool, amazing projects around New York City, a lot of the super tall skyscrapers, met a lot of really cool people. And most importantly, I learned a lot, really developed that technical foundation and technical writing foundation that the industry prides itself upon. So I worked my way up from inspector to senior inspector to consultant, and each step in the process I worked on just, a little bit farther back. When you're an inspector, you work on when the building's undergoing construction. When you're a senior inspector, you still do some of that, but also work on some of the bits and pieces that happen before building construction happens, like the construction mock-ups, performance mock-ups that happen, see the wall getting tested. And then eventually when you move into consulting, you really start helping clients design and develop these sorts of systems. So each step, as the higher you get, you really start off earlier on in the project cycle to help advise clients on what they do. And, starting off in the field really early on is extremely important to gain that technical foundation to be able to advise clients properly. So I guess what drew me into the industry was learning or wanting to work on skyscrapers. I knew I didn't want to sit behind a desk 24/7. I knew I didn't want to be in the field working for a general contractor or subcontractor. So I thought construction inspections was a happy medium, and I think I chose right.
Absolutely. And at what point did you realize that this is actually where you wanted to build your career long time? Was it, when you first got out there on the field when you was at Vidaris at the time, or, was it kind of as you stepped into the consultant role, you thought, this is for me?
That's a tough question. I think there's multiple facets. I mean, like I said, I always knew I wanted to work on skyscrapers. I lived right outside of New York City, so I knew that's where I wanted to focus my career, skyscrapers in New York City. Facades, it was a bit of a rocky start. Being an inspector is tough. The first winter is really tough, being out on site, 10-degree weather all day. It's not fun. But as you ease more into the role, as you start to really understand what you're looking at, you really grow an appreciation for it. And as you start working with different clients and different manufacturers and stuff, it's a really rewarding experience being able to advise them on exactly what they need to do.
Absolutely, yeah, I bet that is a great feeling. And yeah, one, a path that you've taken really well, and accelerated, like we mentioned earlier, from going from Socotec over to your current role as well. So, I mean, one of the things I think that makes your story so unique is holding both, a PE licensed professional engineer and being a registered architect, through AIA, and that combination really does change how people see you in the industry and in on projects and so on. So how has being dual licensed actually help shape your credibility and the kind of work you actually take on as an individual?
Sure. So that's a good question. I think I'll go into my background about how I got both licenses first, if that's cool. So
For sure, yeah.
I started with my PE license because I had a degree in civil engineering. I did my 4 years of working under another PE. It's a tough day-long exam, but if you really put your head down and study for a couple months, I think anybody could pass it. So I got that first. It was fall of 2022. Um, while working at Socotec, I realized a lot of the partners and principals there were registered architects, and at the time, Socotec was set up as sort of a architecture firm on paper. And I thought it was a natural progression after doing construction and architectural inspections for 4 or 5 years at that point. So it's interesting. The state of New Jersey actually lets you sign up to take the architecture exams if you have a professional engineering license. Um, it lets you skip the education requirement that's
Wow.
required. New Jersey is one of the actually few states that I know that do that. So I'm licensed in New Jersey, still working on getting my New York State license. Um, but it
Wow.
was a natural progression for me. I decided to challenge myself. And in late 2023, I decided just to take all, there's 6 exams total. I took all
Mm.
6, one after another, every other day. And, I passed them all and got my license that way.
Wow.
And the the exams are pretty technical. They're not like asking like, oh, what did Frank Lloyd Wright design? Stuff like that. It's all like, where does the insulation go on this building? What's missing here that could cause the building to leak? And it goes down pretty deep into different architectural contracts. And so you really have to read and familiarize yourself with those before diving into
Mm.
these exams.
Wow, that is very impressive. To be fair, we hadn't actually discussed that previously, and yeah, that is obviously how you got that dual licensure, and a very impressive way of doing it. So wow, that must have been an intense 6 days. I've heard that the architecture exams are very, very tough. So yeah, hats off to you there. Yeah, impressive. And so, do you obviously think that path, going through that studying of getting your architecture license actually helped you bridge the gaps between, design intent and the structural or the diagnostic side of things when working on the facades?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that architecture license studying for it helped me understand some of the systems I was working with better from a environmental standpoint, like working with the thermal aspects of it, different types of insulation, what type of waterproofing is required, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I think it really helped me reinforce that technical foundation. And like I said, the exams are really technically focused. They want you to have that foundation before you get your licensure and go out and design things for people. So I think having both licenses uh, really is helps you understand what needs to be done in order to design something pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that makes sense, right? That's a good way to look at it. So, would you recommend other people taking that path? Pursuing both, if if it kind of works and they can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know the other more general path to get both forms of licensure is to major in architectural engineering. I don't know too many colleges that offer that. I think Syracuse, Drexel, in Philadelphia has that.
Mm.
My college certainly didn't. So that's one way to do it. I think another way to do it is to get a master's in architecture if you have an undergrad in civil engineering or vice versa, and then work a couple of years in the industry. It just so happens to be that New Jersey had this uh, third way of allowing you to gain licensure that
Mm.
I took advantage of.
Yeah, that's do they still do allow that for you to do that?
As far as I know, yeah, they
Yeah.
still allow it.
That's very cool. I'm glad that you mentioned that for sure. So okay, cool. So I mean, getting this licensure, I think definitely, as an architect or as an engineer, it created a kind of powerhouse, someone who can do all of the work essentially on a project in some cases. So let's talk about that time when I first called you a couple of years ago now, and we had this conversation about a role that I was working on. That was over at Ancora Engineering and Architecture, where you are now the director of architecture. So yeah, gave you a call, just kind of off the cuff, and it was good timing. I had been keen on speaking with you for a while before that, actually. To discuss obviously the market, and what kind of opportunities were out there, and then this one came along, and I think I'm hoping this guy could be interested. So it turns out you was, and obviously you were a consultant at Sopotech. Stepped into a role as a director, and we got you someone working underneath you who doing very well still. So that team's now growing, and you've got a service line that you are, I think successfully leading. I mean, how was that, and what changed for you professionally and mentally, even when you made that move?
Yeah, so absolutely, it was a big jump. I'm sure, as you know, as a recruiter, the people you help transition into new positions, it's always tough.
Mm,
There's if you're taking a risk at the end of the day, you're going out of that really like warm hot tub jacuzzi that gave you like that feeling of stability, good feeling working with great people the past couple of years into another pool. And it's a scary transition, but I think you helped me as best as you can make that transition, and I think it's been pretty successful up to now. As for transitioning the role itself, I had to learn to wear a different hat, basically at the end of the day. And I dived headfirst into the deep end because it was something that was really exciting for me, and still getting there. What's the phrase? Jack of all trades, master of none. I've went into Ancora with a really open mind, started helping out a lot there, and I know a lot about all the different service lines that we offer there. We're really multidisciplinary, and help them out as best as I can.
mm,
Um, I think really learning how to take a higher, more authoritative role in the company and
mm,
what you
mm,
do every day, growing a backbone, speaking with clients directly, negotiating contracts or writing proposals for them and discussing it, all different things that I wasn't doing at my previous role that I
mm.
had to learn quickly. We're a small company, and I had to uh, step in where needed because everybody's busy. So
Mm.
I really appreciate the level of independentness that I currently have, that I'm able to execute the work that I want to do at the level I want to do it at.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a great firm and you've got that freedom, right? And obviously, we're kind of checking in and speaking with each other, and it seems like it's going really well, like you say. So, I mean, how do you balance, obviously, being a very hands-on technical guy, with a lot of technical oversight, and building a small team culture where you've got someone that kind of relies on you for direction and so on.
Good question. Um, so that was also a hurdle I needed to overcome early on. Uh, as you know, we have Taylor, great person. She's a direct report of mine,
Mm,
and I needed to train her early on. She joined after a couple months after I joined Ancora, and it was she's a great person to work with. Still training her. I have a lot of knowledge to share, and it's not really until you start training somebody else to follow in your footsteps that you realize exactly how much you've learned in the past 6, 7 years in the industry. So sometimes I catch myself really, um, appreciating a lot of the information and knowledge I've gained, passing it on to my direct reports that way.
mm,
Also, you have to maintain a professional attitude and all that stuff. You can't complain about anything, which really got nothing to complain about, to be honest. But you really have to be the person, be the guiding light that the people under you really want to see you as. You have to develop a leadership mentality, a mentoring mentality. Absolutely, that's extremely important. And you have to really build and maintain confidence to be able to make calls that obviously, maybe some of your direct reports aren't experienced enough to make. And that was something that I needed to learn and develop rather quickly as well. And it's scary. What if you make the wrong call? What if you advise on the wrong thing? Which at the end of the day sometimes happens, but something that's fixable if you address it in a timely manner. So I think the transitioning roles, a lot of the same technical knowledge applies, but mentally, I think you really need to start thinking about yourself as a leader and somebody who can be a great mentor to the ones you want to follow in your footsteps.
No, great. That's a great answer there. Yeah, I mean, and that's one thing that I've admired about you since we first spoke is that you are very intentional, about the way that you train people, the way that you give information, and your knowledge that you've picked up over the years, and obviously, more kind of on the networking side as well, making what you're doing known in the industry. And I think that's great to see. I mean, why do you think that matters for professionals today? Obviously, it's a huge part of everyone's daily jobs, networking and so on.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't get business if you don't network at the end of it. So, but of course, starting to branch out and meet different people in the industry. Networking is extremely rewarding and satisfying when done correctly. For example, I went to a conference a couple of weeks back, a Facade conference, and met a lot of old friends, met a lot of new people. It encouraged a lot of mingling with a lot of cocktail tables I had set up, and I met some pretty cool people in the industry that I normally wouldn't have had talked about, and some of them have already emailed me. So I think it's that's that networking thing, and who knows, maybe I could reach out to them about a question, they could introduce me to somebody else down the line. So it's rewarding, and at the end of the day, your reputation is of course what precedes you. So obviously, speak with intent and passion and respect, slowly build your network that way, and people outside will see you in that lens, and they would want to continue working or being amicable with each other.
Absolutely. I mean, it's conversations that happened 2, 3, 4 years ago sometimes that don't actually mean something, or turn into something until a couple of years down the line. And that's happened with myself many times. People mention that they met someone on a project years ago and then they're interviewing with them. The networking side of things I think is going to change massively in all industries. I think it's a lot more about how much visibility we do get online and within the industry. And I think the people that kind of embrace that and make the most of it and put themselves out there are the ones that are ultimately going to be recognized and will hopefully see fruition from that. So yeah, that's great. What would you advise to people that are looking to make a change and pivot into the next step of their career, like you were, a couple of, over a year ago when we first spoke?
Sure. I suppose be willing to try something new. I understood that the role at Ancora wasn't exactly what I was doing at my previous role, but I was ready to take that step. I knew I'd be working with different people. That's scary. I knew I'd be working on some things I don't have technical knowledge about. That's also scary. I knew that I would need to lead things that I really didn't have the right experience leading, but that's scary too. And, as long as you welcome it with open arms, you work closely together with your colleagues, new colleagues, develop close relationships with them. You're going to learn that technical knowledge. You're going to learn to develop the right mindset about what it means to take on the role that you're taking at the new company. Um,
I mean, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. Your role at the moment, there's huge responsibility. So, like you say, mindset. You know, I guess your mindset had to shift quite a lot, right? And as opposed from just being a singular consultant to actually, what's this, for the person that's working, directly below me, what are they doing, and how are their actions going to affect me? And there's so much else that goes into it, right?
yeah, absolutely. Another thing I need to worry about is making sure that my direct reports have enough work to do every day.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
a manager at the end of the day in that aspect. So, and making sure that the work that they do send out is of quality, of, internal and good quality. At the end of the day,
Mm.
what you send out needs to be 100% correct
Mm.
to our clients, whether it's a report or a drawing set or just a piece of advice. They're relying on us to provide uh, good, factual, honest knowledge.
Absolutely. No, for sure. Okay, cool. So I think it would be good to discuss something now, which I think a lot of firms at the moment are struggling with, and that's keeping employees and retaining employees. I think there's a lot of movement in the industry at the minute. There's a lot of uncertainty as well. Some firms are really doing great, and some, are maybe struggling. But there's a lot of, factors that influence that at the moment, and I'm sure many people are aware of those.
Hmm.
But from your perspective, what actually makes someone stay? Because you've joined Ancora, you was at Socotec for a long time, and then obviously you're doing well at Ancora. What's making you stay, or makes people stay? What actually makes people start looking elsewhere, in
Sure,
your
that's an
opinion?
excellent question. Again, no straight answer. I think it's multifaceted, but you're looking out for yourself
Mm,
at the end of the day. And working at some companies, there may not be a clear path to where you want to go, which is completely fine. There's, um, you have to ask yourself at one point if you want to advance yourself professionally in a way that you want to see for yourself. You need to take risks.
Um, Something that obviously was quite a pivotal part of your career was transferring from a big corporate company that have offices here in the UK, over in the US, to a considerably smaller company, less than 50 employees, and younger as well as a business. What was that transition like for you, and what was the value in that?
Absolutely. So when I started with Bedaris, it was New York City based, and after working there for a couple of years, it eventually got acquired by Socotec, a multinational company like you just mentioned. And uh, there was a lot of great technical knowledge that you could reach out to other offices to get, and making the jump. And eventually, I knew I really didn't want to work for an extremely large company like that. I really liked working closely with a lot of people like that. And again, when I found Ancora, I knew it was an appropriate jump to make to go back to a smaller company and um, find my find where I wanted to bring myself in my career that way.
Mm,
And it's been a really rewarding experience. I like the startup mentality. We're only about 30 people. We're still um, growing, and
mm,
we all have to wear different hats to help out where we can. And that's something I really like. And on the other side of the coin, if you work for a really big company, sometimes you don't get to see the different facets of the business, which is completely fine if you're just interested in, remaining technical or
mm.
remaining an inspector, something like that. Um, I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons, so that's why I started looking for a smaller company where I knew I could help out, make a true impact that satisfies me when I leave the office every day.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that and that's I think was very important. I mean, what are you actually seeing in the like in terms of the construction market at the minute, just before we go, if you don't mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously the new 270 Park Avenue just opened, the JP
Mm,
Morgan Tower, and I walked by it jealously
Beautiful.
the other day. I think it's really shiny, really spectacular tower making a presence on the New York skyline. I happen
Mm,
to like it. I know a lot of people that don't.
okay.
Um, I know that there's a lot of demolitions going on in New York City. That's what
Mm,
Ancora works on a lot, which means that new towers are going to fill that footprint in the next few years. So look out on the skyline to see more skyscrapers. I
mm,
don't think we're slowing down. There's ebbs and flows, there's
mm.
waves and dips, but I don't think anybody's fully stopping for any reason.
No, that's great to hear. And yeah, that new JP Morgan headquarters is yeah, quite something. Very, very spectacular. But yeah, thank you for that insight. That's great. Yeah, I'm loving watching your journey. I'm loving seeing, how things are progressing for you at Ancora. It's been a great journey from what I can see and what you've just told us. So it's excellent. And that story really reflects how much is possible in this industry when you commit to growth. I mean, it's been such a short period of time that you've achieved so much compared to what some people may take, 20 years to do. So, for anyone listening, where's the best place for people to connect with you? I believe it's going to be LinkedIn, and then to follow some of your work would be probably the company page as well on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, follow Ancora Engineering and Architecture on LinkedIn. We post pretty frequently on there. Alternatively, feel free to message me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I always love helping people out if they have career advice or offering nuggets of mentorship as well.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time, Rob. Thank you once again. And thanks for everyone who will be listening to this. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow for more conversations with people shaping the future of facade and building envelope consulting. I'm Ethan Randall, and this was XTERNA Insights. Thank you.